just getting ready. Be just another second. Hi, this is Sally Flashberger from the Wisconsin Board for People with Developmental Disabilities. It's another Living Well Wednesday. Thank you for joining us. We are lucky to have some great experts on voting joining us today. We have Wendy Hine. She's with Disability Rights Wisconsin and part of the Wisconsin Disability Vote Coalition. And Jenny Newgart, who also works at the board, but works on the Wisconsin Disability Vote Coalition. So they're the experts, and we're going to turn our Living Well Wednesday over to them, and they're going to give us a great presentation. If you have any questions, you can type them in the chat, or if you're watching on Facebook Live, you can put them in the comments, and we will be happy to answer any questions. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Wendy and Jenny.
Hi, my name is Wendy Hine, as Sally said, and I'm excited to be with you talking about voting. Voting is a really big issue right now for us. We have 2 elections coming up in August and November, and but voting is always a big issue in our country. So we just want to talk to you about some of the relevant issues in Wisconsin and things that might affect you with voting. So you might wonder, why does it matter that people from the disability community vote? And I think this is something we think about a lot with smaller elections, like when there's just a Supreme Court election, as there was recently, or you know, state officials, and voting always matters. I think we think about voting a lot when there's a presidential election, like right now. We have this presidential election coming up and people are thinking about it a lot, but really it's always important, and especially for us as people in the disability community, because elected officials make decisions on things that matter to us. So if there are things that you utilize in your everyday life, things like transportation, public transportation or Medicaid transportation, transition services, schools, medical services, personal care, all of those kinds of things our elected officials are making decisions on. And for a lot of us, they affect every single day of our life. So we want those officials to think it's important, that we want the things that are important to us to be important to them as well. When we vote, it shows that we care and that we're paying attention, and so they want to pay attention too. And really, our votes can change the way elected officials do things. They really do make a difference. And again, as I talked about before, local elections are really important as well. So this upcoming August election, there are going to be some key things that that are going to happen. We're going to look at in the August election. Jenny, can you change the slide for me? So in that election, there's going to be many different things on the ballot. The candidates for all the U.S. congressional representatives will be decided. All the state assembly reps will be, a lot of us have relationships with our state assembly representatives because those are the people that are kind of on the ground here in Wisconsin, in our areas. They're all going to be voted on again. So your state assembly person could be changing. State senators from the even number districts, the county DAs, the district attorneys, and the candidates selected in August will be on the ballot November 3rd. And then of course, the election that everyone knows about is the presidential election. So these offices are all going to be changing. We're going to have the chance to vote on all of those. And so that 2020 August election is really important. And we've, as we all know from the April election and from our everyday lives changing so much recently, the COVID, the threat of COVID and all of the contagion risk things are going to affect that election. So we're going to talk to you about some of that specifically as well. Some basics about voting in Wisconsin. And these things are the same, COVID or not. You have to be a citizen of the US. You have to be at least 18 years old. You have to be a resident in Wisconsin at least 10 days at your current address. Or you can vote at your old polling place if you were already registered in prior. And if you have trouble with that, I can certainly help you. You can call us at the 1-800 number we'll share later if there's any issues with that. But you should be at your current address for 10 days. And then you have to not have lost the right to vote through guardianship and competency, or that you're currently serving a sentence for a felony. So those are the basics about voting in Wisconsin. So you have to register to vote in Wisconsin. Again, you have to have lived in Wisconsin or at your current location for 10 or more days. And you can register online. We're going to talk more about the online options and the awesome MyVote site. There's so much you can do with it. So online is a great way to do it. You can do that for up to 20 days before election day. Same with mail. By mail, you can do it up to 20 days. And in person, you can even do it on election day at the polling place or prior to that at your municipal clerk's office. So there are lots of ways to register, but registration is required in Wisconsin to vote. So online registration, again, I said, is an awesome option. Any eligible Wisconsin resident can do that at myvotewisconsin.gov. But you have to have a current ID. So like a current Wisconsin driver's license or ID. And then it has to have all the matching information correct. So if you've changed address or something like that and it's not updated, those are situations where you would need to not do it online. But the online option is a great option for voters who are already 18 and who have a current license or state ID. Next, yeah, so this is the www.myvote.wisconsin.gov, and this site is really awesome. You can look up and see whether you're registered. Some people aren't sure if they're registered or not. So you can you can click on all of these different, the gray boxes where the cursor is right now. You can click on those and you can check if you're registered. You can go to register to vote. And then you can also do lots of other things on here. You can check and we're going to talk about a lot of these later, but this picture shows you exactly what you'll see if you go there. And you can request your absentee ballot there. You can check what's on your ballot. You can register to vote. But that dark black box up that's highlighted right now, that's your register to vote spot, and that's where you would want to go if you were going to myvotewisconsin.gov to register. You'll need proof of residence. So it has to include your current and complete name and your current and complete address. If you register to vote online, it will match it like automatically matches your current driver's license number to all of that. And so you don't need to provide a proof of residence because the computer system is set up to do that. But otherwise you need a proof of residence document. So some forms of proof of residence, this isn't a complete list, but your current driver's license or state ID, a lease with your name on it and your address, a gas, electric, or phone bill within the last 90 days, a bank statement, a paycheck or stub, any sort of government document that has your name and address on it, a real estate tax bill. Those things prove that you live where you say you're living. So I'm going to turn it over to Jenny here, and she's going to talk more about absentee ballots because this is such a important part of voting right now. So.
All right, thanks, Wendy. Yeah, so we want to definitely emphasize voting by absentee with everything going on with COVID. We do believe it's the safest and best option for most people. So we're going to tell you everything you need to know about it. Absentee ballots, if you're eligible and you are a registered voter, you can vote by absentee, and that just means a ballot is mailed to you, you fill it out at home, and you send it back in. You'll need to fill out an application for an absentee ballot and submit it to your municipal clerk with a copy of your photo ID. We just want to emphasize that you need to plan ahead if you're going to absentee vote, because if you fill out the application, you need to leave time to get the application to your municipal clerk, have them have time to send the ballot to you, you fill it out and send it back by election day. So, and your request has to be received by the clerk no later than 5 p.m. on the Thursday before the election. So again, it's not a difficult process, it's just a process that you need to plan ahead for. Or the easiest way, if you have access, is to request the ballot online at My Vote Wisconsin. So the graphic we just showed you, as you recall, it says vote absentee on there, and you just click that and enter your information in there, and the ballot will be mailed to you. So you can skip a couple steps there. You will, if you request your ballot online, you do need to upload a photo ID. Which we're finding can hang up some people, just the technology part of that, because you'll need to like take a picture of it on your phone and then figure out how to upload it. So we've been, the Disability Vote Coalition has been trying to work on ways to walk people through that step. People can definitely call the 800 number for help, and just trying to cut down on the difficulty with the photo ID part. Otherwise, requesting it online is very easy. You can also choose if you want to just get your absentee ballot for the upcoming election, or you can request them for the entire year. So you can pick and choose which ballots you want mailed to you. And if you are a voter who's indefinitely confined, you can request that a ballot is sent to you automatically for every election until you don't return a ballot. Then you would have to make the request again. And indefinitely confined is something that you basically decide for yourself. If you're not able to go out without assistance, and you choose, you don't have to prove that you're indefinitely confined. It's just a box that you click when you request an absentee ballot, and that can simplify the process for people. So we want people to be aware of that option. The witness signature, there was a lot of issues with the witness signature in the April election because the rules changed. And some people had already sent their ballot out without the witness signature because it had been decided that that was okay to do if you couldn't find a witness. And then that decision was almost immediately rolled back. So several ballots did not get counted. Quite a few didn't get counted. So you do need a witness signature. That must be there. And the witness signature basically is verifying that you filled out the ballot yourself and you put it in the envelope. The witness should not view the ballot choices that you made. The witness has to be a US citizen and over the age of 18. And then there's a little picture there where you can see where the witness has to sign the certificate and provide the address. So that is where people didn't do that and sent their ballot back because they thought it was okay, and then their ballot wasn't counted. So you must fill that part out. Let's see, finding a witness. So in the time of COVID, finding a witness can be pretty difficult. So we have been trying to offer creative ways of doing that. Some communities had drop-off locations for voters who've completed their ballots. So there was people there that when you dropped it off would be able to witness your ballot for you. Some communities in the April election offered drive-through services, so you didn't even have to get out of your car, but there was someone there to witness it for you. We also were thinking outside of the box with asking essential workers. So if you're out getting your groceries, maybe you could ask someone there to do it for you quickly. There's a lot of drive-through things like banks and pharmacies that already have the windows, so there's already some natural built-in barriers there that you could possibly ask them to do it. Certainly if you use a personal care worker, any of those kinds of services, they would be an appropriate person. And then definitely asking family members, friends, neighbors to maybe watch you through a window or your door. And then you can put your ballot in the envelope and leave it outside the door. The witness can sign it and mail it for you. We even had one neighbor or one person on a call that we did that said she threw it across the bush to her neighbor, and the neighbor signed it and threw it back over the bush to her. So it may be a little different now that the Safer at Home order has been lifted. There might not be as many options for like the drop-off locations and drive-through services as there were in April, but some communities are still going to be doing that. Again, it's very dependent on your community. So we can't really tell you who's doing what where. You just have to ask your municipal clerk what your community is doing. So really important deadlines you need to be aware of if you're going to vote absentee. You can vote at your clerk's office starting the third Monday before the election through 5 p.m. on the Friday before. If you vote absentee by mail, again, request the ballot no later than 5 p.m. on the Thursday before the election. We recommend you do it way earlier than that. Again, that's a very tight turnaround for everything to happen, and make sure you get your ballot on time. Your completed ballot must be delivered, must be returned by 8 p.m. on election day. And the post office recommends that you mail your ballot at least a week before to make sure it's going to arrive on time. Again, we recommend even a bigger buffer than that. So some of the key deadlines with the actual dates we put in the box below: request your ballot by Thursday, August 6th. If you choose indefinitely confined, you get a little extra time there, an extra day, August 7th. And then registering, Wendy talked about if you need to register to vote yet, you need to do that by July 22nd, whether you're doing it online or by mail, or in our state, you can register to vote in person on election day. So again, we just want to emphasize how important it is to follow the directions on the absentee ballot to make sure that you've completed your ballot correctly and that you have that witness signature, because you don't want your ballot to be thrown out for an error. Let's see. Returning your ballot, again, don't delay. Must go to the municipal clerk or a drop box if you have one by 8 p.m. on election day. You may have someone else deliver your ballot for you, and we've heard people say that they've heard conflicting information about that, but that is allowable. You can have someone deliver it for you. And if for some reason you requested a ballot and it didn't come, you can still go vote on election day in person, which again, we know that's not ideal with COVID, but worst case scenario, if you didn't get your ballot, go ahead and vote in person. Check the status of your ballot. That's another great feature of My Vote Wisconsin. You can log on to there and it shows you. It's kind of like what reminds me of the Domino's pizza, where it shows you, we got your order, we're putting it in the oven. It's exactly like that. It shows when you requested it, when it was approved, when it was mailed, when it was received. So you can always double check there if you're getting nervous. And I already mentioned you can vote on election day if it doesn't come. Early voting is sometimes also referred to as absentee voting, but you can apply and vote your ballot in person at the clerk's office. So it's not an election day, but which might be an option where there would likely be a lot fewer people. Sometimes that makes people feel better because you know you're handing it to someone. And again, it's different for every individual city, village, or town what those in-person absentee voting hours are. So you need to check with your municipal clerk, and we've provided a link there for you to find out who that is. And then we're going to switch back over to Wendy for some tips on voting on election day.
Hi. So for some of us, we might be choosing to do the absentee ballot, and some of us might still choose to vote in person. So, and whether you choose to vote in person or not, this time, there may be times in the future as well. So I'll just talk to you about what to expect when you go into the polling place to vote. So when you come in, they're gonna, the worker is gonna ask you to state your name and address. And that is a state law. And so, but if you can't state your name and address for some reason, if you cannot speak it, an election official or someone else of your choosing can do it for you. So people do that different ways. They show them their photo ID and then the person speaks it. Some people write it down. However you choose to do that, that accommodation is legal, and it's actually a law. So you can have accommodation for that. But otherwise you will be asked to state your name and address. Then you'll be asked to show your photo ID. There are many different IDs that are acceptable photo IDs. The most common ones are the Wisconsin state ID or the Wisconsin driver's license. And one thing to note that a lot of people don't know, I won't go over the whole list of acceptable IDs, though it is available on our website and on the Wisconsin Election Commission website, is that if you go to the DMV to get a new ID and you don't have time to receive that ID in the mail, usually they mail that to you. Like, I think mine took like 7 or 10 days or something. You get this little, it's pictured on the top right corner of the little brown acceptable photo ID thing on the screen right now. You get this little receipt. And the receipt actually is cool. It has your picture. Oh, the cursor is on it. Jenny's doing the cursor on it. So it has your picture on it and it has all the pertinent information. That receipt is actually a valid voting ID as well. So you can take that little receipt in with you and you can use that as your voting ID. So it's not just cool to look cool. It also works as your voting ID. So you'll state your name and address, you'll show your photo ID, and then you'll be asked to sign the poll book. And the poll book, you can actually ask as well for an accommodation that we'll talk about later, and it's called a, now I'm suddenly forgetting the name. It's a signature guide, and it's like a little metal piece that they set over the space where you would sign, and then you just sign inside the metal piece. It's really nice if you know, because all those lines kind of blur and you don't know where to sign your name. So the signature guide, a lot of municipalities just use the signature guide for everybody, so you don't have to ask. But if they don't, you can certainly ask. Can you change the slide, Jenny? So after you do those things, they're going to give you your ballot, and you're going to complete and cast your ballot. You're probably going to stand or sit in front of a ballot box like this, or a booth, some people say, and you will fill it out, and you can, and then the next step is that you're going to turn it in to usually you give it to the poll worker, or you actually slide it into a the ballot box. So we're going to talk in just a few minutes about also another option for filling out your ballot, and that is that you can use an accessible voting machine to do this portion of it. And that'll be part of a video we're going to show you in just a few minutes. One other thing that I want to mention is that it's okay to bring a cheat sheet with you for this portion if you wanted to bring a list of who you want to vote for. If you can't remember all those people's names, I actually do that, and it's very, very helpful to me, especially like this August election. There's going to be a lot of things on that ballot. So I'm actually going to vote absentee this time, but if I were going in person, I would bring a cheat sheet for myself. Another thing is that you can bring someone to help you mark your ballot. They can't tell you who or what to vote for, but you can bring someone, and they don't even have to be a voter. They could be your 15-year-old little sister, or the only thing they can't do is be your boss or your union representative. Anyone else you could bring with you to help you with this portion. So you're going to complete and cast your ballot. So the next thing we want to talk about is staying safe at the polls. And this is something that is really a thought for a lot of people because of COVID-19. And we kind of don't know by August, you know, things are changing every day with the virus, and we don't really know what to expect. So we want to talk to you about staying safe at the polls. We would recommend that you review your ballot online at My Vote Wisconsin. That way you could bring the cheat sheet, like I said, or at least know who you're going to vote for so you can get in and out quickly, so that you're not standing for longer than you have to where there are other people. Another option is curbside voting. This has always existed in Wisconsin, but it's especially wonderful during this COVID-19. If you're not able to enter your polling place due to disability, you can request curbside voting. So, and you'll see that also in the video that we're going to share. So it's a great option. Every polling place in Wisconsin offers curbside voting. Some polling places are also offering sort of a variation on that called drive-through voting. Jenny mentioned it, or maybe she didn't mention it, but she mentioned drive-throughs. But so we've heard of municipalities that are offering, I think, drive-through voting where they have people standing outside and you can drive up and cast your vote. I've heard of them happening, the voting location being at a bank where you could, so every municipality is different in what they're offering. The best advice we can give you about those things is to call your municipal clerk or look at your municipal clerk's webpage and see exactly what your municipality is offering. If you must get out of your car to vote, protect your health. Practice social distancing as best you can. Wash your hands before and after you vote, and wear a mask. Be patient and courteous. Election workers are doing their best, and these are not normal circumstances. They're difficult. And a recommendation is to bring a black pen. You can use a black pen to vote, and that way you're not touching one that someone else has used. So those are ways that you could stay safe at the polling place.
Although I will say the polls were really well stocked in April with pens that everybody was getting their own pens, so nobody was reusing. But we're not sure about August. So just a thought to bring your own.
Yeah. So we wanted to share a video with you that talks about some of these things. So we'll do that right now.
As a voter, and especially a voter with a disability, it's important that I know my rights when I go to vote. By law, all polling places in Wisconsin must be accessible for people with disabilities. Once a voter with a disability arrives at a polling place, no matter how they got there, there must be an accessible route to get to the entrance from the parking lot or drop-off zone. If parking is provided at your polling place, accessible parking must be provided for people with disabilities and should include the space itself, an adjacent access aisle, and proper signage. If the accessible route is different than the general path of travel, the polling place must have signs to direct voters with disabilities to the route.
All polling places are required by law to have an accessible voting machine. Each municipality might use different accessible voting machines, but poll workers at every municipality are required to assist you if you need assistance. A poll worker should be able to explain how the accessible voting machine works, or assist you with casting your ballot using the voting machine. Remember, you have the right to vote privately and independently.
If you need assistance marking your ballot on election day, you may take anyone you wish with you to the voting booth, except your employer and your union representative. This person is allowed to help you mark your ballot, but can't tell you who or what to vote for.
After you have marked your ballot, the person helping you must sign the ballot in the space provided. The election workers will write the name of your assister on the voting list.
The assister does not have to be qualified to vote.
All polling locations should have an accessible entrance. However, if you're unable to enter your polling location or absentee voting location due to a disability, curbside voting is available. 2 poll workers will bring you your ballot to conduct voting at your vehicle or the polling place entrance. If you're voting curbside, you're not required to sign the poll list, though you are still required to show a photo ID according to the requirements of Wisconsin's photo ID law before receiving a ballot.
If you have questions about your rights as a person with a disability or about how your municipality accommodates these rights, contact the Wisconsin Elections Commission at 608-266-8005 or toll free at 866-VOTE-WIZ. For help with disability-related voting questions or help filing a complaint, call the Disability Rights Wisconsin Voter Hotline at 844-DIS-VOTE or 844-347-8683.
The Wisconsin Disability Vote Coalition is a project of Disability Rights Wisconsin and the Wisconsin Board for People with Developmental Disabilities. Funding for this video was made possible through the State of Wisconsin funds administered by the Wisconsin Elections Commission. This project was supported by funds received under the Help America Vote Act for protection and advocacy systems to provide education, training, and assistance to individuals with disabilities to promote their participation in the electoral process.
Okay, we'll spare you the rest of the stuff at the end there. So these rights as a voter were addressed in the video. We just wanted to have them on the slides so that when you refer back to the PowerPoint, when you're trying to remember, you've got the information here and you don't have to rewatch the video. So we talked about the accessible voting machine and accommodations you can ask for in line. Curbside voting is a big one that we're trying to emphasize a lot because even seasoned voters have not been aware that curbside voting is an option. And we've talked about all these. So being an informed voter, we've done several surveys through the Disability Vote Coalition, and one of the things that we've found is people with disabilities have a difficult time finding information about candidates and being an informed voter. So a couple of the recommendations we had are to, look at your ballot online at myvotewisconsin.gov to see who's on it. Ballots are typically out there 47 days before a federal contest and 21 days before state and local contests. And then from there, you can go to candidates' websites. There's oftentimes, and especially bigger contested races, there are candidate forums, so you can listen to what they think about different ideas. Access to interviews is easier than it's ever been. There's always a ton of stuff on social media, and most candidates are going to have their own social media platforms as well, where you can get a good sense of where they stand on certain issues. And if they're an incumbent or someone who's already been in office, is currently still in office, you can go to their website and find out how they voted on other issues in the past. Those are, good options for being informed, but that can sometimes be hard because sometimes the language they use is maybe technical, or there's just so much information to wade through. So we'd really just recommend, talking to friends and family, people that you really trust about these things, to help you kind of, wade through all of the information so that you can make a decision for yourself about who you want to vote for. And as we get closer to elections, Vote 411 is a good site for nonpartisan information about candidates, which is great. So they're not trying to sway you to vote one way or another. They're just simply presenting factual information about candidates so that you can make up your mind. And then ask questions of the candidates. So the Disability Vote Coalition has worked with a couple dozen different organizations through Survival Coalition to come up with sample questions that you could share at a candidate forum or in an interview, or even posting on their social media to get a sense about issues that are important to you. So for example, you're not often going to hear candidates talking about any kind of disability related issue, but you can ask a question about a disability related issue so that you can get a better idea of where the candidate stands on that. So, and like I said, we've put some questions together for you, and you can certainly ask your own. And those are available on our website, disabilityvote.org. We couldn't take this opportunity without mentioning the census, because it's so incredibly important that people with disabilities complete their census. So as you may know, the census is something that's done every 10 years, and it's an attempt to count every person living in the United States. And basically what that does is tell us where money and resources need to go based on the people that live there. So if you're counted in the census, we can get more money brought into Wisconsin for things like fixing our roads, transportation, better schools, Medicaid services. So, disability services that we rely on, we can get more money for that if more people are counted in the census. And it also decides like how many congressional representatives we have, like at the federal level, and it makes decisions about our legislative districts. And historically, people with disabilities have been underrepresented in the census because it can be difficult if people are living in group homes versus like their parents' home or their own apartment or something like that. So we have a huge effort where we're trying to get everybody to complete their census. You can do it online, by phone, or through the mail, but they do prefer online, and it is the easiest method. Everybody by now should have been mailed a census packet, and you would have gotten a 12-digit ID that you just go to 2020census.gov, type in that ID, and then it asks you, really, it's just a few questions actually. It only takes like probably 5 minutes. But when you want to make sure only one person in the household completes it, so you don't want someone else, like a roommate or something, doing it and you've done it as well, because then you'll be counted double. The census is available in Braille or large print, as well as non-English languages, and you can go to their website to get those accommodations made for you. So please, 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 if you haven't already done it, take care of it. Again, it's just a few minutes of your time. And the rest of this information is really just key voting resources. And since you do have access to the PowerPoint. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I want to make you aware of some of the key ones. Is obviously the Disability Voting Hotline, 844-DISVOTE, is available anytime. If you have questions about voting, if you've tried these other resources, you just can't figure out what to do, you can call that hotline, and it's specific to disability voting issues. Wendy is often a person answering those calls, but it is staffed all the time, and especially on election days when people might run into the most issues. If you have any more questions about the photo IDs, bringit.wisconsin.gov. We'll clarify all of those issues. The My Vote Wisconsin website, we've talked about constantly. It's just the best website. And then our own website, disabilityvote.org, has tons of resources. We've got print fact sheets about specific topics. We have a frequently asked questions fact sheet that we update regularly, especially as we get closer to a new election. We have several videos. The one we showed, there's one on becoming a poll worker yourself, which we're not really recommending for people with disabilities right now during COVID. There's some on, getting the youth vote out. So just lots of videos. We encourage you, take this information, use it, adapt it, whatever you need to do. Just get the information out to your friends, family, people you work with, anyone that you think could use the information. And then the following slides just break it down even more about what they do. So this is more about what the DisVote does, the coalition. We talked about up-to-date information. You can join the coalition. So there is a group of people from different agencies or just interested people who really want to work on this issue. And we meet monthly. We're actually meeting this afternoon to talk about what we can do as a coalition to spread the word and increase the number of people with disabilities voting. So you can join us on that. You can also just sign up to be on our email list where you get like our newsletter and things like that. So you can just be better informed. And we do have a Facebook page that we post a lot of current information about. So you can follow us on Facebook, lots of ways to be involved. The My Vote, we've already talked about all the things you can do on there. But one thing I don't think we talked about is you can also look up your voting record. So you can go back and look at every time you voted, and it'll tell you like, did you vote in person or absentee? So I've looked at that a couple of times. It's kind of helpful information. The Bring It, again, is all about your photo ID. And then what can you do before the next election? So these are sort of the big takeaways is check now to see if you're registered. Even if you're 100% sure you're registered, we still recommend just check. Things happen. We've heard, unfortunate stories of people who thought they were and went to vote and they weren't. So just check at My Vote. If you're not registered now, you don't have to wait till we're closer to the election. You can do it anytime. Do it today. Find out where your polling place is. And find out who's on your ballot. That's not going to quite be available yet, but it will be shortly. But those are things you can do so you're not like the day of or the day before rushing to figure that out. Again, taking time to learn about the candidates well in advance. Request your absentee ballot and think about who you'll have witness it because it's different times. And you can request your ballot today. I don't think I emphasized that enough. We said request it early. You can do it today. You can request your ballot today for August and November, and then you don't even have to worry about it. And the more that people do that now, the better prepared municipalities will be to get that out because they were just so overwhelmed with requests in April. That's what caused a lot of problems with people not getting their ballot in time and the resources there to handle the number of requests. But if people are doing that now, it'll make that whole process smoother in August and November. And then make a plan. Think about it. Where do you vote? How are you going to get there? That's a huge one for people with disabilities in particular, if you're going to do it in person, and who you'll vote for. Follow us on Facebook, great information, and most importantly, just vote. Just do it. And if you get hung up on any of those steps anywhere along the way, call that 800 number. And then here is also contact information for Wendy and I directly. So I think with that, we can open it up to questions. And again, I just want to reinforce a lot of information to take in. But that's why we put so much detail into the PowerPoint, so you can refer back or go to our website.
This is Sally. So there definitely are some questions.
Okay.
In the chat. There was one about requesting a Braille ballot, and the person had not received it, and just wanting to know if there was a number to follow up. I did post the Disability Vote Coalition number in the chat so people could have that. But any recommendations on the Braille ballot?
The voter would do the same thing that you would do for any ballot, and that would be to contact their local municipal clerk on that. If they don't get a satisfactory response, then the next step would either be to call us or call the Wisconsin Election Commission. But the municipal clerk would be the first step in following up on that, and should be able to address the concern.
Great. There was a question. It was first phrased, what about nursing homes? Who is able and unable to vote? But then it also asked about guardianship and who can vote under that.
So there's two pieces to that one. Nursing homes are a complicated issue right now. So typically a nursing home, there are something called special voting deputies in Wisconsin that go into nursing homes, and it creates a pretty seamless process for people in nursing homes to vote. Right now, that will not be happening for the upcoming elections because of COVID. Nursing homes, most are on some phase of lockdown. I don't know if that varies from nursing home to nursing home. It sounded to me like maybe it does. But in any case, there will not be special voting deputies, which means that all of the voters in nursing homes need to request absentee ballots. We are working with DHS to get information out to nursing homes on how they can help their residents do that. What they do with that information, and I think that nursing homes have their hands really full right now with a lot of concerns, as I think all of us do. But so if you have a loved one in a nursing home, or if you help people in nursing homes, it doesn't hurt to start asking about how they're going to facilitate getting people to be able to request their absentee ballots, helping them complete them and witness them. So that is going to be individually up to nursing homes, or up to residents at this point. And it would be the same process as it would be for any of the rest of us to request an absentee ballot, as Jenny and I just described. If you should need help with that, I'm super happy to help you problem solve how to make it happen for specific people, specific nursing homes, things like that. You can call me at the 1-800 number. I don't always know the answers, but sometimes I can help find the people who do. So the other part of that question is guardianship. And in the state of Wisconsin, just because you have a guardian does not mean that you lost your voting rights. There are a lot of sort of check boxes on a guardianship, and one of those is voting rights. So the default setting is that a person who has guardianship keeps their voting rights, unless the judge specifically checks that box and takes the voting rights away due to a person's capacity to understand the voting process. And that's a pretty, that issue can be pretty murky. And again, I would encourage you, if there are specific cases where this is either unknown or somebody really, we often talk to people who've lost their voting rights, but would really understand the process and would like to be voting. And we can direct you to people who can help out with that. So again, I would say contact me, but a person can check their guardianship order. It will tell you. We have a really great brochure. It's available at the Disability Vote Coalition website, and it actually, on the third flap of the brochure, it talks to you about exactly where to look in the guardianship document to find whether or not a person has retained their right to vote. So.
And I think, Wendy, that's some of the questions, because I think the same person who's asking about the nursing home then asked about people who may have dementia or Alzheimer's and guardianship. So I think it's, you know, like, how do you figure out who, so really that would be based on whether the person had a guardian or some type of order, correct, around their capacity.
And so we a lot of times get questions from, like, when I do a presentation for like groups of providers, we get a lot of questions about, like, well, how do I decide if my resident really has the capacity to vote? And I know you're deciding lots of things that are hard. I sometimes when I present, I get to hear about all the really hard things that people are facing in those situations. You actually, if you have a client who wants to vote, or a person who wants to vote, and they have, and their guardianship papers say that they have the right to vote, you don't have to decide if they have the capacity to vote. It's already been decided. So, so it's one thing you don't have to, you can just help them out with getting to the polling place or getting their absentee ballot. But again, that guardianship document is going to be the thing that decides for you, tells you this person does or doesn't have the right to vote.
And if they don't have a guardian, then they have the right to vote.
Absolutely.
Great. I think there was a question about on the absentee ballot using a pencil or a black pen, but somebody answered for us. But I think you had talked about using a black pen, or, if you know, for sure using a pen. So that was another question.
I saw that question earlier, so then I was digging around on the WEC website because I was like, I don't know the answer. So in person, the answer is black pen, but I found that in some places it says number 2 pencil or black pen. So I'm going to clarify that, but I know that a black pen is safe. So
right. Okay, good to know. I think the other thing too, you guys talked about the absentee ballots, and we had talked the other day that if you've already requested your absentee ballot in the past and uploaded your ID, then the process is simple. I just did it for myself, and we got my sons, and we didn't have to upload our IDs again, which I thought was a great thing. So if people are worried about that, if people are worried about that, it's not, it's very simple.
It's only the first time that you have to upload your ID, and then you don't have to do it again unless you move.
And I feel really intimidated about the uploading my ID thing. Like, I kept putting it off before the April election because I was like, oh, I can't handle the stress of it. And then it was so easy to do. So, and I'm not very techie, so it was not too bad. Pretty easy.
Yeah, I don't see any other questions in the chat. We did post the link to the PowerPoint. So if anyone didn't grab that off the chat, give that a look. We will also, it was also posted on the Facebook page. So for the presentation, the live presentation will be there, but it was posted there too if people are looking for the link to the full PowerPoint. We really appreciate you doing this for us. We're glad we're doing it early so people can, you know, like you said, they can do it today. They can request their absentee ballot. They can register to vote. So all of those things. And, you know, hopefully it'll be a smooth election cycle. But we appreciate you, Wendy and Jenny, joining us for Living Well Wednesday. Next Wednesday, we have a, we won't be available. We aren't going to be doing a live presentation. We're still figuring out, but we hope to have a watch party on our Facebook page. So look for that announcement. But we'll be back the following week with another great topic for Living Well Wednesday. So thank you very much, and we really appreciate you all joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.